the next speaker, my parliamentary neighbour, colleague and friend, and one of our spokespeople on health who's spoken out bravely against the attempted war in Syria. Please give a warm welcome to Diane Abbott MP.
I'm here this evening to put beyond doubt my opposition to war with Syria. I voted against the Gulf War. I voted against the war in Afghanistan. I voted against the Iraq War, and I will not be supporting war with Syria. Such a war would not be legal. Such a war would not solve anything. Anybody who thinks that the day after we bomb Syria, Assad is going to wake up and say, I'm going to stop these atrocities against my people, is delusional. It will not be legal, it will not solve anything, and we run the risk of being embroiled in a civil war in Syria. What I have always said is this: if the answer is an American military intervention, then you have asked the wrong question. I will not be voting, and I hope the Labour front bench will not be voting, for anything that is not legal and anything which gives a blank cheque to Cameron to start this bombing. At this time, we all of us, whatever our party, whatever our beliefs, have to come together and say, hands off Syria. Thank you.
Can you please welcome my great friend Tariq Ali?
Friends, once again we are out on the streets to stop or to try and stop yet another war. And this time we have the support of an overwhelming majority of the British and American people who do not want their countries to make war on Syria. So far from being alone, we are actually giving voice to a majority of people who feel that they are not represented in Parliament except by a handful of MPs. Every time there is a war, all the parties in Parliament get together and back it. And this time, when even the Arab League, which is normally in the pocket of the United States, is not backing the war, when the United Nations Secretary General is demanding more time to ascertain what these weapons were and where they came from, when there is growing disquiet within the military in this country and in the United States, they are still going to war. So we have to ask, why are they going to war? Is it that they care about the Arab people? No. Is it that the loss of Arab lives upset them? No. They are going to war to intervene in a civil war, to make sure that the Syrian regime, which has been pushing its opponents back, doesn't get too powerful, and to show the people they're backing in the war, we've come to give you a bit of help so that the civil war continues endlessly and people carry on killing each other. Instead of doing what they should be doing, is insisting on a political solution to this war. And is it the case that the West is suddenly drawing red lines for chemical weapons? Who has used chemical weapons in the world? Don't, but go right back. Who has used nuclear weapons in this world? Only one country. Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombed when it was completely unnecessary. Agent Orange, heard the name? a chemical weapon used in the Vietnam War, whose effects are still felt in the Vietnamese countryside. Chemical weapons used in the Iraq War in 2004 in Fallujah. White phosphorus. Where was the red line then? The only red line in Fallujah was the line drawn in Iraqi blood. So when they tell us this is why we are going in, it is a lie. Because underneath this is a grand strategy to try and topple regimes which are not completely in their pockets, and the main regime they are targeting is Iran. Because Iran supplies Hezbollah with weaponry which comes through Syria, and Hezbollah is the only organization in the Arab world which has fought the Israelis to a standstill. So that is what is going on. The war has little to do with human rights or anything else, as the West tends to pretend. Little or nothing. So we need, once again, to build a movement. We want you all, and bring many, many other people along on Saturday. And we want to put pressure on the party which is supposedly the opposition party in Parliament to act as an opposition party and vote against this war.
Thank you very much, Tariq, and thank you for all the work you do in exposing the lies and hypocrisy that so often lie behind these conflicts. The demonstration on Saturday assembles at 12 at Temple Tube, followed by a march and a rally concluding the demonstration in Trafalgar Square. That's 12 o'clock this Saturday at Temple Tube, and then march to Trafalgar Square. So we're going to need a lot of people there, so please spread the word around and come along to that demonstration. The next speaker is from Iraqi Democrats, who opposed the bombing in 2003, and as long as I can remember has opposed these kind of conflicts, this kind of horror and this kind of war. Please give a very warm welcome to my good friend Samir Ramdani.
10 years ago they started the war on the Iraqi people, and so far they have killed more than 1 million Iraqis. So far in the Syrian civil war, some 100,000 people have died. So how many more do they want to kill before they are satisfied? The more you think about it, the more this system that they run is absolutely irrational. It thrives on war, it thrives on bloodshed, and they will not rest until they dominate the entire world. And even then, they might want to find other enemies up in the skies. They and their allies in Downing Street have built their reputation on war and on exporting war and weapons of mass destruction themselves.
Another Arab country that will risk a much wider regional conflict
and that will once again put our country on the wrong side of international law, of humanity, of morality and justice. We speak for the majority, but we haven't got long to give it voice. So come to lobby your MP tomorrow before and during the debate. Turn up to a demonstration on Saturday. Organise action, debate, discussion in your communities and workplaces. Do nothing else for the next few days but try and stop this aggression against Syria. My second message is to Ed Miliband: avoid the bipartisan disaster of Iraq. Do not follow the example of Tony Blair. Listen to Jeremy Corbyn, listen to Diane Abbott, listen to what Tariq Ali has just said, and make Labour oppose this war. Speak for the Labour movement, speak for the majority of people in this country. And my final message is this: if you wanted one single reason why this war is such a bad idea, you can find that reason bobbing around on an oligarch's yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean. It is the ludicrously miscast Middle East peace envoy, Tony Blair, yet again demanding war, demanding aggression. Now, the Royal Navy has 4 ships in the Mediterranean. If they want something actually useful to do, turn around, find that yacht, board that yacht, and take Tony Blair to The Hague.
I am listening, I promise, and I am speaking out against this war as well. Can you please give a very warm welcome to the convener of the Stop the War Coalition, indeed one of the founders of Stop the War Coalition, Lindsay German.
It's tremendous to see such a big crowd here today, and I'm sure all of us feel exactly the same way. Not another war in the Middle East, which is going to lead to thousands and thousands more deaths, which will lead to a greater instability, and which will lead probably to a bigger war in the Middle East than anything that we have seen in our lifetimes. But that is what David Cameron is offering us this week. And we're here to say we don't want another intervention. We have had humanitarian interventions going back to Kosovo, going back to Afghanistan, going back to Iraq and going back to Libya. And in every one, more people were killed as a result of those interventions. More people were made refugees. So when you have people saying, what can we do? Why should we be doing something which has been proved to make things worse? Different results, because the imperial powers do not change. They do not change their behaviour. They do not change the way that they operate. They are there to divide up the Middle East in their own interests, not in the interests of the people there. And that is why we have to oppose the war. And when people say chemical weapons have been used, I'm totally opposed to chemical weapons. I'm opposed to their use by whoever uses them. I'm opposed to their manufacture. But can we please remember that the United States used them, Agent Orange in Vietnam, which led to birth deformities for generations to come, white phosphorus and depleted uranium in Fallujah in Iraq, which are still leading to terrible birth deformities in that country and cancers and all sorts of other things. And they sold chemical weapons to Saddam Hussein. This is the government that we're dealing with, and our government has gone along with every single thing that they have done. And they are saying in the next day or two they are going to produce evidence of chemical weapons used by the Assad government. We really should be sceptical of this, because 10 years ago Colin Powell gave us evidence of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That was a lie, and they are building this case for war on lies. And tomorrow the MPs in Parliament should do what not enough of them had the guts to do 10 years ago, and vote against the government and vote against the other parties if they are supporting this war. We should demand of our elected representatives they listen to public opinion.
opinion which is overwhelmingly against this war. There is one final point. They are cutting people's benefits, they're cutting the health service, they're cutting education, yet every time they want a war, this is millions, if not billions of pounds that is being spent to wage misery and destruction across the Middle East. Let's start saying we're fed up with austerity, we're fed up with war, we're fed up with this government, and we're fed up with the opposition if it doesn't start opposing. So let's organise now, be there on Saturday, come tomorrow if you can to lobby your MP, do everything you can to build a mass movement. They ignored us over Iraq. We're not going to allow them to destroy the world in the way that they tried to do then. Keep campaigning, keep organising, and we are going to win against this government.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. It's interesting that all the activity in the past 24 hours seems to be having some effect on members of Parliament and indeed party leaders. The news that's now coming out is that the Labour front bench are going to put down their own amendment, and if that falls, will vote against the government motion tomorrow. Now, it remains to be seen what the motion is that's going to be put down and the amendment, but I think that's obviously a sign of movement and a sign that the popular opposition to yet another war is bearing fruit. It pays to demonstrate.
And we hear Mr. Miliband has changed his spots. Well, it's a bit late. Yesterday he was saying he was going to support this intervention, but he was going to support it reluctantly. Well, there's a simple message for him. On the next election, it'll be thrown out. And we can march up and down all we want. But the best thing that we can do is have civil disobedience, start blocking roads, start blocking traffic, and organise a general strike against austerity here and murder over there.
Thanks, Steve. The Kurdish people have suffered like no other ever since the dismemberment of the Ottoman Empire.
Al-Qaeda militants are attacking the Kurdish resistance movement in the north of Syria. I'm sorry, I'm being interrupted here for some reason by this gentleman here. The Kurdish people are the ones who have suffered the most in Syria, have been denied their rights, have been tortured and imprisoned, and the Kurdish people do not want Western intervention because it will open the door to the Turkish regime to come in and slaughter them. They will carry out a genocide against the Kurds in the north of Syria if Western intervention goes ahead. Please remember the Kurdish people in Syria who are resisting against Al-Qaeda and Turkey and all the forces. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. The next speaker I want to invite to come and say something is Sean Oliver from the International Department of Sinn Féin and their representative over here. They themselves have been through amazing conflict, but also have brought about a peace process because of their steadfastness. Please welcome Sean to the stage.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm delighted to take this opportunity here in London to release a statement which the party in Ireland put out today. It is clear that if further military intervention from foreign countries will only increase the death and destruction that the Syrian people are experiencing. Sinn Féin opposed lifting the EU arms embargo in Syria earlier this year. We opposed it because it was obvious to anyone that flooding that country with more weapons will only cause more violence and bloodshed and will not bring peace. Syrian people, like people all over the world, have a right to live in peace and free from fear. They also have a right to democracy and the highest standards of human rights. We have all seen horrifying images of civilians, mainly children, suffering what seems to be the effects of poisonous gas in Damascus. The circumstances around that incident are still unclear, and any actions against civilian population by participants or groups in this conflict must stop immediately. Yet the rhetoric from Western countries such as Britain, France and US suggests they want to exacerbate the situation by gearing up to directly militarily attack with no plan and with no strategy. More than 100,000 people have already been killed in Syria's civil war, with over 1.5 million refugees. Further military intervention will bring more death and destruction. As with Iraq, Afghanistan and continued strikes in Pakistan and in Yemen, innocent people are being killed in huge numbers, as these weapons do not distinguish between combatants, militants, civilians and children. We know from our experience in Ireland that conflict can only be resolved by dialogue. World leaders need to use their influence to secure a ceasefire and to bring all sides to the table for serious discussions and the building of a peace process. European and American bombs will not bring peace to Syria. They cannot bomb Syria into peace. Military action will only cause more pain, death and destruction, and may well destabilise the region further. It must be opposed by us all.
Thank you, Sean. Demonstrations and peace demonstrations are about justice.
Hands off Syria! 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 No war in the Middle East, no justice, no peace! No war in the Middle East, no justice, no peace! No war in the Middle East! Hands off Syria! Hands off Syria!
Rees to the platform.
This is just the beginning, and the first thing I want to say is to all of you that are here now, and all of your friends, everybody you can contact, everybody you can reach on the social media, everybody you can email, come back tomorrow at 1:30 on College Green, because there is not just the question of possibly tens of thousands of additional Syrians who are going to lose their lives as this takes place. It's also a fundamental thing about politics in this country. It is not a democracy. It is not a parliament. If the MPs do not conduct themselves in a way which means that they represent the views of the overwhelming majority of people in this country. So tomorrow, come back and make it clear to them, to the streets. Return to the squares. Come back onto a national demonstration and join us in trying to prevent an absolutely hideous war, which in its consequences can be even more serious than the attacks on Afghanistan and Iraq. And look at one small corner of what is happening in the shadow of this attack. The State of Israel has just granted in Syrian land that it occupies on the Golan Heights oil drilling rights to an American company which has Rupert Murdoch on its board of directors. In that small snapshot, you can see everything that is wrong with the American and British British New World Order. They want the armed wing of the corporate power to rape and pillage in every corner of the globe for profit. Every Tomahawk cruise missile that is released is not just carrying death to its victims, it is one more hospital ward closing here. It is one more school closing here. The war over there is a war on us here. We have to stop the war abroad, we have to break the government, and we have to tell Ed Miliband this. I'd heard that you were against strikes. Every time Unite have a strike, you tell them you're against strikes. Every time the civil servants have a strike, you tell them you're against strikes. The only kind of strikes that you seem to be considering are missile strikes. And that is not acceptable to us. It is not acceptable to us.